Unfortunately, I couldn't find the exact car that is being discussed as there are several versions of this story. However, I would like to focus on a specific example. In our case, we are talking about a Subaru. However, I don't have a Subaru. But in reality, you can imagine any car as I mentioned before, many different cars have gone through this scheme. So the situation started quite ordinarily, as these stories often do. A girl decided to sell her car and posted an ad online. The car was quickly bought by a person. According to this version of the story, he purchased it below market price and immediately puts it up for sale again with a slight markup. And after a while, the car is bought by resellers. The people who pick up the car ask, "How are we going to finalize the deal?" The seller replies, "Listen, I'm not going to mess up the vehicle registration. I don't plan on putting my name on it. The price is quite reasonable and attractive. Take it as is, I'm reselling the car and I don't hide it. You're also taking it with the intention of reselling it." The resellers agree and take the car. After a while, they put the car up for sale again, but some manipulations are done with the car. It gets cleaned, photographed, and detailed. Now it's no longer just with the resellers, but at a small car dealership where the end customer comes in. This all happens very quickly, since the car was initially bought at a low price. After being resold twice, it ends up in the hands of the next buyer. When this buyer comes to pick up the car, they're told the same story again. "We're reselling the car. We're not hiding anything. Why bother with the vehicle registration? Let's do everything the old-fashioned way." In such situations, it's always hard to assess the risks and make a well-thought-out decision. Of course, the price plays a role. If you don't like it, don't take it. We'll sell it to someone else. But once again, the vehicle registration isn't touched. The person buys the car and 2 days later goes to the traffic police to register it. He goes through all the inspection stages, and when it comes time to submit the documents, he's told, "Sorry, we can't register the car because it has been decommissioned." The car was decommissioned just a few days ago. The registration certificate has been decommissioned, the license plates have been decommissioned, and the car has been scrapped. The person, to say the least, is left completely confused. He rushes back to the dealership where he bought the car and angrily asks, "How could this happen? I paid you money, we did everything properly, and now it turns out the car was decommissioned just a few days ago. How is that possible?" The resellers shrug and say, "We don't know. We bought the car. Everything was fine. We checked everything. Don't worry. We'll sort this out." They begin calling the person they bought the car from. The phone doesn't answer. After several attempts to find a solution, they manage to get in touch with Maria, the person who sold them the car. When they ask her why she decommissioned the car, she replies, "Who are you? I don't know you." Maria continues, "I didn't sell anything to you. Not to you and not to you." At this moment, someone from behind adds, "Yes, and I didn't sell anything to him either, and you didn't give me any money." She continues, "Sort out your own issues. Contact the person you gave the money to for my car, the one who signed the sales contract with you. Sort it out with them. Don't bother me." The next day, Maria herself calls the people who resold the car to the final buyer and says, "Can I at least get in touch with this person? I've thought it over and decided that we can still find a compromise." She contacts the person who bought the car and says, "You pay me 200,000 rubles, and I'll close the matter. Turn a blind eye to everything, and I'll restore the car from decommissioning." It's important to note that to decommission a car, all you need to do is go to the traffic police with the owner's passport. The car, its documents, and the license plates are not needed. You just show the passport and say, "Decommission my car." It's quite simple, but here's the key point. In order to restore a car from decommissioning, the person who decommissioned it must do it. Maria says, "Without me, you won't be able to do anything, so let's do this. You pay me the money, and I'll withdraw my claims. I'll restore the car from decommissioning, and everything will be fine with you." She continues, "To make you feel more at ease, we'll make everything simpler. Everything will be better." Maria continues, "I'll just send you a power of attorney by registered mail. I'll make the power of attorney." But she adds, "You understand, if I send it to you, you won't send me the 200,000 rubles. Let's do this. You send me a copy of your passport and 200,000 rubles to my bank account." The person replies, "I'll send the copy of my passport, but before transferring the money, you need to understand me as well. Send me at least a photo of the power of attorney, not the original, Just a photo, so I can check if everything is filled out correctly. If everything's in order, I'll send the money." The next day, Maria sends a photo of the power of attorney, which, as it turned out later, was photoshopped.
The person decides to verify the power of attorney through the notary registry and the official website. He receives information that such a power of attorney was not issued. He calls Maria back and says, "Something seems off. I checked the number through the notary and didn't find such a power of attorney." To which she responds, "Listen, maybe there's some error. Maybe the database is loading slowly. I don't know what else to tell you." He insists, "I want to be sure." She replies, "Okay, let's put this off for now. We'll call later and sort it out." When they call again, Maria offers a solution that seems impossible to refuse. "Let's make it easier. We can meet at the traffic police station, by the terminals where they issue Q tickets. I'll come personally, restore the car from decommissioning, give you the sales contract, and you pay me $200,000. That's it. You drive off. Does that work for you?" Of course, this works for him. He asks, "Are there any hidden risks?" She answers, "No, no hidden risks." They agree to meet the next day at 11 a.m. The next day arrives. The man is in a good mood, confident that everything will be resolved. He's happy that his problem is almost solved, and he narrowly avoided trouble, but fate seemed to be on his side. Everything should go smoothly. The man arrives at the traffic police with the documents, parks the car next to the building, goes inside, and takes a spot by the terminal that issues tickets. He waits. 10 minutes go by, then 15, 20, 30, an hour, but Maria is still not there. He can't reach her on the phone. A little frustrated, he thinks, well, anything can happen. But when he leaves the building, he's met with a real surprise, a complete turn in his fate. Not only is Maria missing, but his car is gone. In shock, he runs around the parking lot looking for the car, asking questions, when a young man approaches him and asks, "Mikhail, did you lose a Subaru by any chance?" Mikhail replies, "Yes, I lost a Subaru. It must have been towed." But the young man responds, "No, it wasn't towed. When you buy a car, here's a piece of advice for the future. Install an alarm, change the locks, or at least the keys." The hint is clear, the car was taken. Mikhail realizes the situation is serious. He asks, "How do you know what happened?" The man replies, "I'm aware of all your issues. I'm Maria's representative, and the car is with her now. She's the real owner." Mikhail is confused. "What about our agreements, our correspondence?" The man answers, "We're not going back on our agreements. We're ready to proceed with you, as we agreed. But you're getting too nervous. First you don't like the power of attorney, now you need more guarantees. But where are guarantees that you'll return the $200,000? Let's do it this way. The car will stay with the real owner, and you pay the 200,000 rubles. And by the way, you have no time to think. You need to decide now, yes or no, because we're not coming back here a second time. No one will chase after you. We'll sort everything out, close all the issues, and issue the sales contract." The person replies, "Well, of course, why not? Let's do it that way." He waits for a call. 1 day passes, then 2, 3, no one calls, and he can't reach anyone. He goes to a car sales website and finds out that the Subaru has already appeared in another city. As soon as it's listed for sale, it's bought, and the ad disappears. Then the person who has the cancelled vehicle registration and the signed but not submitted statement to the traffic police checks the car and sees that it has been registered with the traffic police. Through acquaintances, he finds out that, indeed, the car was registered after being restored from decommissioning, and with a duplicate vehicle registration certificate, it was successfully transferred to the new owner. Unfortunately, stories like this involving car purchases through third parties are extremely dangerous. This can really lead to problems. The signature in the sales contract and in the vehicle registration certificate should only be placed by the person who actually has the legal right to do so. And phrases like, "Let's not mess up the vehicle registration," or "Let me make it from the owner," for me, these are stop words. When I hear this, all interest in continuing the conversation about buying the car disappears. In such situations, it's very difficult to prove anything to anyone, because no one admits their fault, and who will say that, "I sold you something"? Nothing is written anywhere and nothing is proven. Why did I mention the first reseller? Because in this scheme, at least two people are involved. One is the car owner, and the second is the person who sells the car, pretending to be a reseller. After all, the owner cannot sell the car directly, or else he would have to sign it. But in this case, the scheme works well. One person sells the car, the other resells it. Of course, the price is lower than market, so if you don't like something, goodbye. In this scheme, there are two people, and the key moment is that the second, third, and fourth keys are not given away. A duplicate key is made, the car is started, and it is driven off. It's like a boomerang. You throw it, and it always comes back. It's the same here. Everything will come back with the scrapped car. People in this scheme don't take risks. They sell the car even if it's below market price. But this doesn't mean it's given away for free. It's a sort of insurance. Even if they can't win, they won't lose. The car was sold for money. It might not be in the best technical condition, possibly even accident damaged, but it's still sold at nominal value, and in the end, no one loses. When a car is sent for disposal, this is when the person starts looking for a solution. He goes to the owner who sent the car for disposal and says, "This is what happened. Please help us. We didn't want this. Help us out." The situation is this. A scrapped car can either be broken down for parts or an attempt can be made to find a solution. It's like a boomerang. Someone threw it and eventually it all comes back, and then the car is sold again. So friends, when someone offers you to not mess up the vehicle registration certificate VRC, it's worth thinking. Maybe it's better to actually dirty it. If you have any interesting stories or know of car schemes, car scams, be sure to write and share your experience. If you bought a problematic car, for example, one that was welded from 2 or 3 parts after an accident with tempered mileage, or if you were denied registration due to suspicions of altered license plates, all this information should definitely be shared with me. The most striking and interesting stories, the most exemplary cars, will definitely be posted on my channel. Mikhail was in shock. He realized that not only had he lost his car, but he had also fallen into a difficult legal trap. Maria's promises, her assurances that she would solve the issue fairly, turned out to be empty words. He took another look at his correspondence and realized that trusting Maria and her intermediaries was a huge mistake. He decided not to give up and went to the traffic police to figure out exactly what happened to the car. While waiting in line at the registration desk, he met several people who had also encountered problems with car registration. One of them explained that his car was sold with forged documents, and when he went to the traffic police, they told him the car had been decommissioned. Mikhail realized that his case wasn't unique and that there were many fraudsters like Maria in the car market. Not wanting to accept the loss of his money, Mikhail decided to take action. He called the police and reported the theft. He understood that this might not be a theft in the traditional sense, but still the car had disappeared right in front of his eyes, and now he was deprived of ownership rights. Faced with a situation where the documents and the power of attorney were not legitimate, Mikhail began gathering all the facts to present his case in court. However, the problem was that no party was willing to admit their guilt. The resellers claimed they bought the car in good faith, while Maria insisted she didn't know these people and hadn't sold the car to them. Mikhail found himself tangled in an unimaginable legal mess, where everyone was acting in their own interest, giving him no chance to find a resolution. He decided to meet with a lawyer to figure out how he could restore his legal rights to the car and what steps he needed to take to punish those involved in the scheme. New developments. A few days later, Mikhail managed to find a lawyer who, as it turned out, had already dealt with similar cases. The lawyer told Mikhail that such schemes of car resale and decommissioning were quite common in certain circles. It was a kind of business where money was made from unscrupulous deals using loopholes in the law and legal norms. The lawyer explained that, in principle, it was possible to restore a decommissioned car, but for that, it was necessary to trace all the participants in the transaction, prove that it was conducted illegally, and show that Mikhail had been misled. The first step the lawyer suggested was to gather all available evidence: the correspondence with Maria, photos of the documents, pictures of the car, and all audio and video recordings. He explained that if it could be proven that the documents were forged or that the car had been decommissioned in violation of the law, a lawsuit could be filed against the resellers and the seller, and compensation for damages could be claimed. Desperate search for a solution. While the lawyer was preparing the documents for court, Mikhail decided to search for a solution on his own. He traveled to the very city where the Subaru had reappeared for sale. Mikhail felt that if he could track the car's journey, he might find out how it had ended up back on the market. When he arrived in the city, he immediately sensed that the car had become the victim of another reseller who, just like the previous ones, was selling it with minimal costs. He began asking around at the car market, and after a few hours, he learned that the Subaru had possibly been bought in another city and then resold in this region. The new purchase was documented with clean paperwork, and at first glance, everything seemed to be in order. Mikhail did not give up. He decided to track down the person who had bought the Subaru in the new city. Soon, he managed to find the owner, who, as it turned out, knew nothing about the car's history. He was a confident buyer and hadn't asked many questions. When Mikhail told him about his problem purchase, he began to doubt the legality of the transaction and was willing to cooperate with him.
Important moment. Restoration from decommissioning. The next morning, when Mikhail went to the traffic police to find out which documents were needed to restore the car from decommissioning, they informed him that only the person who decommissioned the car, in this case Maria, could restore it. This was the one issue that hadn't been solved yet. Meanwhile, Maria continued to insist that her actions were completely legitimate and that she was not responsible for the resale of the car. But Mikhail was now determined to continue the fight. He believed that justice must prevail. This was precisely why he had contacted lawyers, who helped him prepare the documents for filing a lawsuit. Judicial proceedings. After several months of court hearings and thorough evidence gathering, Mikhail finally succeeded in holding those involved in the scheme accountable. Maria, as the central figure in the process, was found guilty of fraud and was required to compensate all the victims for their losses. Additionally, through the judicial process, ownership of the car was restored, and Mikhail was able to recover his Subaru. The Subaru story highlighted how crucial it is to thoroughly check and inspect every document when purchasing a car. This became a lesson not only for Mikhail, but also for anyone looking to buy a car through third parties. It's always important to understand that such schemes can have far-reaching consequences, and every step requires special attention and caution. New obstacles and unexpected turns. After finally retrieving his Subaru, Mikhail decided to take another look at the legal aspects of buying a car. He understood that if he found himself in a similar situation again, proving his case would be difficult. He began looking for others who had faced similar problems. That's when a new issue surfaced. It turned out that the scheme of decommissioning cars and restoring them was not unique. Mikhail managed to find several victims who had encountered the same situation. One of them, Igor, shared his experience with a car that had also been decommissioned and then resold with forged documents. But the most interesting part was that in his case, the story repeated with each new buyer. Igor explained how he had purchased the car at a good price, only to encounter the same issues as Mikhail. He didn't know what to do, and also thought he had simply bought the car in good faith. This conversation made Mikhail think, if there were many such cases, what happened to those who couldn't defend their rights or didn't have the means to protect their interests in court? He began researching the issue more thoroughly and soon discovered that all participants in the scheme, both sellers and resellers, acted with a certain level of caution, avoiding legal responsibility. But Mikhail was now determined to do everything in his power to put an end to this illegal practice. Meeting with lawyers and uncovering a new truth. To continue his investigation, Mikhail decided to arrange meetings with several lawyers who specialized in such cases. He wanted to understand how deep the issue ran and how it affected others. He learned that there were many more such schemes involving decommissioned cars and their restoration than he had imagined. Every day, dozens of cars that had previously been decommissioned were registered at the traffic police and appeared back on the market, with people buying them without any knowledge of the potential legal consequences. Mikhail realized that such schemes could only be exposed through active collaboration with law enforcement and support from other victims. In the end, he managed to unite efforts with several other affected buyers, who decided to act together. A professional detective took on the investigation, helping to gather all possible evidence, including traces of fraud and facts of document forgery. Uncovering the network of fraudsters. During the investigation, it became clear that the scheme of selling cars through decommissioning and restoration was part of a larger network of fraudsters, operating not just in one city, but across the entire country. This network included document forgery, the use of false powers of attorney, and manipulations with the traffic police to restore decommissioned cars. These individuals worked together, planning each transaction and minimizing risks. As soon as Mikhail and the other buyers began gathering evidence, they discovered that among the participants in the scheme were not only private resellers, but also individuals with high connections in various structures. They had the ability to influence decisions at the traffic police and sometimes even worked with corrupt elements. This was a real revelation from Mikhail, who initially thought he had encountered a simple fraud scheme. Court proceedings and the long-awaited victory. After months of preparation and working with lawyers, Mikhail finally succeeded in holding the organizers of the scheme accountable. The court proceedings were long and complicated, but thanks to the gathered evidence and the collaboration of the victims, justice was served. Mikhail was one of the first to receive compensation for his losses, and together with the other buyers, they managed to expose the scheme involving the sale and purchase of decommissioned cars. The investigation uncovered a whole network of fraudsters who had been involved in selling decommissioned cars, forging documents, and manipulating the traffic police. For Mikhail, this court case became not only a personal victory, but also a victory for all the buyers who had found themselves in similar situations. He knew that without his persistence and willingness to fight, this scheme could have continued to exist, exposing people to new risks. What changed for Mikhail? After everything that had happened, Mikhail felt not only relief, but also a sense of responsibility towards other people who had faced similar situations. He realized how important it is not to remain indifferent when confronted with injustice. The problems with decommissioned cars and their restoration were much deeper than he had originally thought, and solving such issues requires not only knowledge, but also the support of others who are ready to fight for their rights. Mikhail continued working, but now he was more cautious about any car-related transactions. He became a member of an association for car owners that actively fought fraud and tried to inform buyers about the risks involved in purchasing cars through resellers and with forged documents. He began sharing his story with others to warn those who might fall into the same situation.
How to avoid fraud when buying a car. In order to avoid similar situations, Mikhail developed several important recommendations for anyone buying a car from a private seller. Always check the documents. Make sure all documents for the car are clean and transparent. Pay attention to the Vehicle Registration Certificate, VRC, and the Registration Certificate. Be cautious with the phrase, "Don't mess up the VRC." If someone suggests not registering the car in the buyer's name, it's likely a sign of fraud. Check the car's history. Use services to check the car by its VIN number to find out if it's been in an accident or decommissioned. Don't rush into the purchase. If the deal seems too good to be true, it probably is. Trust your instincts and be cautious. Verify the legal purity of the deal. Consult with a lawyer or use trusted services for car registration. After the court, new challenges and meeting new victims. After the court proceedings ended in a victory for Mikhail and his allies, he felt relief. But he didn't stop thinking about those who were still falling into the same traps. He knew that the decommissioning of cars and their restoration was just part of a broader scheme that often involved many people. However, the most important realization was that this scheme was just the tip of the iceberg. As Mikhail began communicating more with other victims, he noticed that many of them were completely unaware of the real risks involved in buying cars through resellers. One such case occurred when he met Ivan, who became a victim of exactly the same scheme, as he did. Ivan bought a car at a dealership located in the suburbs. The car was quite cheap and he thought it was a great deal. He didn't pay attention to the strange nuances. The seller didn't provide full documents for the car, and the contract had a strange condition. The buyer's name will not be recorded in the VRC. Ivan didn't ask any questions, thinking that such things were standard practice. A couple of months later, he discovered that he couldn't register his car with the traffic police. Finding himself in a situation similar to Mikhail's, he learned that the car had been decommissioned, and restoring it from the decommissioning would cost a significant amount. He didn't know how to solve the problem until Mikhail offered his help. After they began looking into the situation, it turned out that they were both part of the same scheme, and it involved the same resellers that Mikhail had discovered during his investigation. Mikhail now understood that he needed to do more than just share his experience. He had to continue fighting against the business that thrived in a legal vacuum and lawlessness. New threats, fighting the system, not just individual fraudsters. After Mikhail began working actively with other affected buyers, he noticed that fighting individual fraudsters was only a temporary solution. The problem lay in the fact that schemes like the one he had experienced were not isolated cases. According to the lawyers, these schemes had become a real business involving hundreds of people across the country, from resellers to traffic police officers and even people working with forged documents. Mikhail realized that if he wanted to truly combat this problem, he needed to change his approach. Instead of fighting each new fraudster, the focus should be on identifying the entire scheme and working towards legislated methods to tackle such situations. Creating a public organization. Understanding the seriousness of the problem, Mikhail decided to create a public organization dedicated to investigating such schemes, helping people in these situations, and promoting legislative initiatives aimed at combating fraud in the car market. His goal was ambitious: to change the system so that no one could buy a decommissioned car with forged documents without consequences. Mikhail began collaborating with several lawyers who started developing a draft law that would provide strict regulation of car decommissioning processes, control over document forgery, and the restoration of cars from decommissioning. They proposed a system to monitor every car that had ever been decommissioned to prevent it from being resold in the future. He also began gathering followers and volunteers to create an online platform where people could check a car's history and share their stories. The platform would feature a forum where victims could discuss their cases and share information. Early successes and victories. Within a few months of operation, Mikhail's organization began to gain popularity. New posts and reviews about fraudsters appeared on the platform, and many people who had been affected by these schemes reached out to him for help. Through his work with legal and law enforcement authorities, Mikhail succeeded in initiating investigations into several major dealerships involved in selling decommissioned cars with forged documents. Mikhail also started inviting traffic police representatives to the public organization's meetings to establish cooperation and impose control over the process of restoring cars. This not only helped reduce the number of similar fraudulent cases, but also raised awareness among motorists.
Challenges and new obstacles. However, Mikhail faced new challenges on the road to success. Not everyone was willing to fight for their rights, and many were afraid of the consequences and preferred to remain silent. Even some of those who had come to Mikhail's aid eventually gave up under pressure from the resellers and fraudsters. Fear of losing money and reputation made people vulnerable. Additionally, Mikhail encountered attempts to exert pressure on his organization. He received threats from those involved in these schemes. One time, his car was targeted for theft, and several times he received threatening phone calls. But Mikhail remained steadfast in his decision to continue the fight, and these threats only strengthened his resolve. He realized he was facing a much more powerful system than just a group of fraudsters. At that moment, Mikhail understood that fighting this business required not only determination, but also the strength to stand up against such a powerful mechanism. The future of the organization: more truth, less deception. Several years passed, and Mikhail's organization gained a well-deserved reputation among those who had encountered similar schemes. Mikhail continued to fight the system, but now he had not only experience, but also a strong team of lawyers, experts, and activists. He became a key figure in the automotive community, embodying the idea that truth and justice could be found even in the most complex situations. While his organization helped more and more people, Mikhail also actively worked to change the legislation and strengthen the laws regulating the used car market. Thus, Mikhail's long journey came to a close, having gone through many difficulties and trials. His story became an example of how one person can change the situation if they never give up and are willing to fight for the truth.